Hey, it's Pablo LSP Data. This video I want to show you a demo application that I built around complaints. But more specific, the use case that we're trying to solve here is, let's say you find a property that you're interested in. Maybe you'll come across it on Zillow, or maybe it's an off-market deal, right? But a lot of times, let's say the price looks right, the cash flow is there, right? But ultimately, the neighborhood in question is typically what is the biggest unknown, right? So you may run the numbers online, it all makes sense, but it's not until you drive to the actual place that you get a chance to look at the neighborhood, right? And a lot of times, that may reflect the price of the property, right? So basically, the use case here is hypothetically, we'll find a property and then we can deep dive into what's in the surrounding areas, right? What kind of issues are being reported, and that way it gives you an idea of the surrounding area, the neighborhood, right? Whether it's an investment property, but more specifically, if you're looking for primary home residence, right? We want to make sure that you don't live in a neighborhood in which the prices, your home won't appreciate, right? Because of any other issues. So from experience, I've noticed there is a few telltale signs of various neighborhoods. So if we see things like nuisance on property, illegal dumping of rubbish, etc., that typically gives us a pretty good idea that the neighborhood may not be in great shape, or there's a lot of complaints related to the condition of the property. So we'll touch on that here in a little bit, but let's run through a scenario. So let's say we're looking for a property in specific neighborhoods, right? On this one, I chose Sunnyside, Houston. So there's a lot of development going on here. And historically, depending on who you ask, they may say it's not a great neighborhood, or it depends on who you ask again. But let's say we're looking at a property, right? So we can choose this one. I think it's very low relative to the price in the Houston market at the moment. So let's say we did our due diligence as far as looking at the numbers, and this is the property that we're interested in, right? So we know a few things based on Zillow and other information that you can get from the county appraisal district, right? But again, it's not until you show up to the neighborhood to see the condition of other properties around, right? Maybe sometimes there's, dogs running around, there's dead horses or animals that get dumped, right? Or various other things that give you a pretty good perspective of what's the conditions around, right? So the app that I built basically takes a sort of a either half a mile or quarter of a mile radius and looks for complaints that have been filed in the past, right? So in this case, if you're looking at this particular property that you're analyzing, this is sort of the type of complaints that are been observed around that, right? So like I mentioned, a few things that typically happen that may give you an indicator that there's problems in your neighborhood, right? And again, from experience, I've seen nuisance property, dumping, etc. And the other thing is it'll show us sort of the top offenders around that area, right? So typically just means that those, are other properties that have raised concerns. In this case, it looks like this is more of a park nearby. So, but in general, this the visualization aspect is kind of what I want to touch here, right? Because again, if you're investing in a property or an area, right, you probably don't want to invest in areas that have a lot of problems, right? And let's say if we do a little bit of additional comparison here, right? So compared to our platform here, I've sort of filtered on the zip code here, right? And that is the zip code for Sunnyside, that area that we looked at, right? So if we want to get some visuals as well, using our virtual driver platforms, we can also look at past complaints around that area, right? And we can search specifically also for some of the addresses as well. But that kind of gives us a little bit of, what are some of the issues, right? And we can also dig deeper into the specific areas, right? Like here, basically, there's a lot of heavy trash dumping, drug use, and prostitution. And again, right, the virtual driving for dollars platform gives us additional details on that. But just on this proof of concept, wanted it to be more of a quick way to determine what's going on around the neighborhood, right? And on this particular one, all we're doing is basically querying all of the complaint data that we have internally, right? And just to give you a little bit of the backend here, all I'm doing is created a Python script I'm using Python Flask to develop this application. This is just a test use case, right? But basically I'm creating the last 100,000 complaints from the Houston 311. And also adding a shapefile, which I'm focusing on Harris County, right? And we're looking at zip codes that start with 770, 3 and 4, right? So that's kind of the logic behind here. We're tying in the address to a specific X and Y coordinates to get that radius or the distance, right? And this is kind of proof of concept that I'm working towards, but I think this is going to give a pretty good insight to any future developers, with specifically real estate investors, to see if this is a decent area to invest in, right? So if we go back, let's pick a second property here. Let's say we're interested in this other address. We'll repeat that process, right? Now we wait. So we've entered that address as well. So now zooming in here, right? Kind of go at again, as you can see, some of the top complaints are nuisance of property, miss heavy trash pickup, dead animal collection, right? So this gives you, again, at a high level, what's going on around that neighborhood and maybe what you would expect to see, especially in the future. You can also, I thought about adding a date range, so that way you can see, how does it look like 2 years from now ago versus last year versus the last 6 months, right? Maybe the neighborhood is improving, maybe not. And let's go and look at other areas, the same use case, but now we'll look at another more affluent neighborhood in Houston. And here we'll go ahead and grab any other street address here. So this one tends to be a better neighborhood or more affluent neighborhood. So if we're just interested to see, what kind of issues happen around this area, we can also get a pretty good idea. And again, not all issues, not all complaints are necessarily a negative thing, right? Because sometimes it just may mean that people care about their communities and they want to keep it clean as well, right? But in this case, as you can see, the type of complaints are related to single traffic signaling, parking violation, water leaks, etc., right? Not necessarily a lot on nuisance or illegal dumping grounds, right, for trash. So again, from experience of seeing, analyzing other properties, that's kind of what I've come to find, right? So again, there is a lot of data here, and obviously, again, the intent is to get a ground level perspective on how does a neighborhood look like, right? So if you're an investor that lives in a different state, this may be useful to identify sort of, again, that granular level, and to give you an idea whether this may be a good neighborhood to invest or a good zip code to invest, right, or not. So anyways, just wanted to show you this proof of concept that I'm working on, and let me know if you have any questions or if you like me to talk about any other topics in the videos. The next video I'll touch on will be the inverse of this. So we'll talk about permit information. So in that use case, I'll overlay the new permits that are happening or new construction. So same use case of finding a property we're interested in. We'll enter the address here and it'll show us if there's any new development, right? So if you're looking for long-term investment, again, you're probably looking at areas that are growing, but again, we'll touch on that topic in the next video. But for now, follow, share, and add any comments you may have or any questions. Again, love to deep dive into any real estate technology questions. So thank you.